Alright everyone, how's everyone doing today? Welcome to another class of PLAR History and Geography here at WASA Distance Ed here in Silicon. It is Thursday, February the 16th, and we are live right now in class. Yes, we're live. Last class, it was a pre-recorded class as I was out of town. I was in Thunder Bay along with Andrea and Ruby to do a short little presentation on how us WASA utilize social media to benefit our students and you guys learning as well. So it was great. Little short presentation, little short trip. Lots of great discussion came out of it. A lot of great ideas and instructions came out of it as well. So it was really good. But now I'm back. We're back on schedule, back on track in terms of our class learning. This is the end of week number 2 of this term 2A. So again, if you missed any content prior, you can all check that out on the archive page and my YouTube page as well. But it is Thursday, shortly after 4 right now in local time. Again, if you want to get in touch with me at any point, any time, simply just give me a call during my office hours. Again, if I'm not there or I'm outside my office hours, simply just leave a message, your name, your number, your concern, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. You can also find me on email at jho@nnec.on.ca, or you can add me as a friend on Facebook as well, social media, jho.wasa. Again, if you want to listen live right now in class and participate, engage, ask questions, you can do that 2 ways. Number 1, call the WASA studio either at your learning center, or number 2, you can call in at home as well. So again, there's many ways that you can engage with us simply by just calling in and just listening. If you want to ask questions, by all means. If you just want to listen, that's fine too. Alright, so other than that, I don't have any announcements or change of plans. Everything is back on schedule and everything looks great. Oh, one more thing. This coming Monday is Family Day. Family Day long weekend, which means that our office here in Silica will be closed. I know that won't affect our classes at all, but again, will be closed on Monday, all day on Monday, as is Family Day long weekend. So Family Day, it's a holiday, can't complain. Hopefully do something exciting, spend time with family and friends, or simply relax, or simply work on your course material as well. So a lot of students have been sending in work, which is fantastic. So again, continue to do that. Some are absolutely just zipping through the content and doing it super fast within a week or 2. And then you can write your test, which is fine too. Again, we're all independent learners, whether you need Smart Bridget or not. But again, continue to work on your assignments where you left off. And once you've done a particular assignment, just send them to me. I'll mark it, give you feedback, and let you know how you're doing. Again, another way to engage in class live is to log on to Smart Bridget. Again, another way you can gain control of my smartboard screen. Another way you can type out your questions or your concerns as well. So again, make sure you do that either at home, at your learning center, or places unknown. Today, we'll be looking at what happened between World War I and World War II. Last class that was pre-recorded, we talked about Canada during World War I. Again, if you missed that, again, go back, check it out on the archive page, and I'll post it on my Facebook link as well. So again, make sure you check that out if you missed it. But yes, we talked about Canada's involvement during World War I. We looked at key political changes, how the government got involved in Canadian lives. We talked about certain different battles and how those battles really define our identity. And we also wrapped up looking at World War I, Canada's contributions as a whole as well. But today we'll just continue on with lesson number 1. We'll wrap up lesson number 1 today actually, and then we'll start lesson 2 next week. But today our main focus is between the 1920s and the 1930s. The 20s and the 30s. So we're looking at these 2 decades and we'll explore what they're all about, and then we'll look at your next assignment in great details at the end. So let's quickly jot down our learning goals, what we'll be talking about over the next 60 minutes in class. So let's jot this down. So we'll be looking at what happened between the 1920s plus the 1930s. Then we'll be also looking at a dark period in history known as the Great Depression. And then we'll finally be looking at women once again, where we talk about the social implication and improvement in terms of the temperance movement. So that's our main focus for today's class. Again, we'll dive in, we'll look at the cause and the impact of the Great Depression, and we'll be looking at the temperance movement as well. But this is our learning goal. This is what we'll be discussing, and then hopefully by the end of today's class we'll have a greater understanding of these themes and these topics as well. So before we start, let's quick look at the background content of what Canada was like in the 1920s. Again, we had a new Prime Minister, Mackenzie King. He was mainly our Prime Minister during this time period. What came out of Mackenzie King was something that's really important. It doesn't talk about this in your assignments, but it's important to note. In 1931, the Statute of Westminster, it gave Canada control to govern without the interference from Britain. So with this in play, Canada can now govern without interference from Britain. So in a way, we have made another step progress in terms of our own identity as a nation on our own. So that's what the government was like in the 1920s, a little bit in the 30s as well. The economy. Well, the economy kind of shifted after World War I. We now had more goods and a better relationship with the United States than Britain. There was an increase in industries such as hydroelectric production, lots of investment among the rich people. In terms of attitudes, what everyday people were all about, it was a more modern society. Okay, more modern, where the middle class group grew in numbers, and there was lots of improvement among schools as well. Couple other themes that came out in the 1920s that we won't discuss, but are important in terms of Canadian history was, 1, the General Winnipeg Strike that took place in obviously Winnipeg and Manitoba, how people protested and they really fought for better work conditions and conditions as well. And then also in the 1920s, the Person case came out, where Nellie McClung and all her friends came along and fought for equal rights among women, and now women were recognized as a full person. So again, there's some couple themes that came out of the 1920s. However, the 1920s was a very exciting time. Okay, some may even call it a decade of hope, or some historians may even call it as the Roaring Twenties. So why was this so exciting? It was a time of prosperity and just good time overall. One, World War I ended in 1918. Everyone came back home, saw family and friends, everyone was happy. It was such a good time. things to look forward to, lots of optimism and prosperity as well. It was great for the upper class and middle class, as it was an exciting time for them. However, the poor, the working class citizens, for them, it was time of disappointment, uncertainty, and time of insecurity, as they did not have the financial means to have a wealthy lifestyle. So again, it was a bit different for them. But if you were wealthy, had money, upper middle class, boom, it was exciting and good times. So in the 20s, a couple things emerged. It was an increase in terms of urbanization, a lot of growth, a lot of jobs and industry boomed as well. The telephone, Alexander Graham Bell, he invented the telephone. That came out in the 1920s. So again, new technology, new invention came out as well. Cars, automobile system, this was big too in the 1920s. A lot of cars model came out. Cars had different colors. It wasn't just one particular model. Because of the car industry booming, it really changed the landscape of how infrastructure and roads and regulation came into place. About 6 out of 10 families in the 1920s had cars. Again, this led to new roads, new highways, and new rules on the road. So again, this was a big, exciting time in terms of looking at cars. The radio, again, another new piece of technology came out as well. The radio, where you can listen to your favorite top 40 music, listen to news around the world. That's local as well, but the radio came out as well. Electricity, again, that increased as well. Medicine, again, a lot of insulin and other types of medicine emerged as well. But again, this time period is really defined as technology. New invention, new consumer goods were coming out. The stock market grew, it doubled in values, and it had no sign of slowing down. Which means it was a great time, a great period to make lots of money, to be wealthy and rich. However, Canadian society is all about more have-nots than haves. What does that mean, you ask? Well, it means that even though all these new production and technology came out and emerged, not all Canadians have them. Okay, only a small portion of Canadians had these new technology. So again, more have-nots than have. Just keep that in mind as well. So again, that's pretty much a little snapshot, little survey of what the 20s was all about. But how did the 1920s ended as we transition and move towards the 30s? Well, the 1920s finished as how it begun. Canada was caught up in a recession. Being modern was not as important as having a job, food, and shelter. So, which means that having basic necessity for living, having a job that paid, having food to eat, having a roof overhead, that was more important than having fancy technology, having fancy goods. Okay, so again, being modern was not as important. Alright, as we transition and move to the next decade, we'll be looking at the 1930s. 1930s. Again, you can find more information about the 1920s on page 6 in your textbook. But as we transition and switch gears to look at the 30s, that also begins on page 6 as well. So understanding Canada in 1930s, it was a social economic shock that left many unemployed and hungry and homeless. Again, it was known as the Great Depression. Factors that came into play because of the Great Depression were, but not limited to, high taxes, economy dependent on exports, overextended credits, heavy debt loans, insufficient financial regulations, misguided government interventions, and which led to a lot of public panic. So this is what happened under the umbrella of the 1930s. So the Great Depression, it was a dark period in Canadian history, and it was also a dark period in the world history as well, as it impacted the rest of the world, not just here in Canada. It left many lives bruised, broken, and shattered. But what made it so devastating? Why did it have this drastic impact that would not only shape lives of Canadians, but also change their attitudes? So I posted a few questions on the screen, something to think about. What caused the Great Depression? What was so dreadful about it? How did it create so much fear that would haunt people for a lifetime? Why was it so dramatic, so uneventful? Okay, let's try to answer some of these questions right now. Again, like I mentioned, that theme that carried over in the 1920s, where the stock market grew and doubled in values. It was a great time to make lots of money, and again, it had no sign of slowing down. It all started in 1929, something known as Black Thursday, where the stock market crashed, and a lot of people begin to sell a lot of the shares as quickly as they can. So again, the New York market crashed. Again, why did it crash? Because stocks have been overpaid. In other words, stocks, the values of the share did not reflect the true value of the company. Which means that it left many companies bankrupt and met a lot of people with no jobs, where a lot of people were laid off. So again, very dramatic, eventful. About 1/3 of Canadians lost their jobs. Again, a cause of it was that a lot of companies were making a lot of products at a fast rate of time that people could not afford. So with all these other items that no one's buying, people are losing money. So again, a lot of companies were making more products than people could afford. Was this the true cause of it? Well, some may argue that's not. It was just one example. But again, it showed that, again, what came out of it was Canadians losing their jobs, going bankrupt, companies went bankrupt and had to be laid off. Which meant that the stock market crash meant it was a symptom of economic instability. Again, some people didn't have jobs back then, and it was really a stressful and dark period of time. This did not last for a day. It did not last for a week or months. It lasted for almost a whole decade. Okay? A whole decade. But that dark time did not stop there. Sure, people lost their jobs. Sure, people didn't have money. But that non-fun stuff didn't stop there. Farmers, if you were a farmer in the Prairie provinces, oh boy, you were hit the hardest. Other countries around the world started producing more grain and wheat than Canada. Again, even though we doubled our wheat production, other countries started to make wheat as well, which means that who do we buy from, who do we sell to? So obviously farmers were hit the hardest. They experienced a severe drought in Western Canada where they had no rain for about 7 years, which led to a dust storm where everything pretty much just dried up. So think about it. Think about your crops and your farmland with no precipitation. All the grounds were so dry, it was not good for growing. Grasshopper. These guys were known as the superbug, a plague, the grasshopper plague. They came out of absolutely nowhere. They appeared in millions and millions and millions, and they started to eat and wipe out all of the crops that was even left. So again, grasshopper ate everything. Drought, not enough water, impacted the growth. Again, not fun times. A lot of people had to rely on luck, like flipping a coin. A lot of people couldn't afford fuel for their production. So what they did was that they had to even hook up farm animals to their cars. Overall, the big picture was that no income, no money, they couldn't pay their bills. So basically, they had to go bankrupt. They had to sell their land, had to sell the home to get some kind of money back. But again, it will really impact the farmers in the prairies the hardest. But not just the prairie provinces were hit with the impact. Other parts of Canada were impacted as well. Out west in BC, well, their resource-based industry and agriculture, it dropped, it declined in numbers and values. Out east in Newfoundland, well, they were not part of Canada, so let's not worry about them. Here in central Canada, Ontario and Quebec, again, massive layoff was the main theme around us. A lot of jobs were cut back, big layoffs. Again, some numbers to put into perspective. Income dropped about 50%, and unemployed were about 27%. Was down in terms of job-wise, 27%. So again, imagine your paycheck cut in half. That was what you had to live with for the next decade. Again, not fun times, stressful time, hard times that a lot of Canadians had to endure. Remember how I said that the Great Depression not only changed and shaped our lives, but it changed attitudes. It changed attitudes. Where people start to challenge the government, individual, and even families. They called upon government relief assistance. Government relief assistance, such as social programs, social welfare, that emerge. So that when a crisis like this happens, we expect our government to do something about it, to help us, okay? Help especially all the poor and all those that are in need. So the 1930s was, again, not an exciting time. It was a dark time. A lot of people were not wealthy, even though the 1920s was a decade of hope. But the 1930s was not just about the Great Depression, unemployment, relief line, dust storms, and hobos, but it's a story about struggles. Society struggled. Again, when looking at history, we need to look at the good side and the bad side. So again, this is an example of society's struggle, where everyone struggled. We must come together and lift ourselves up and overcome these challenges with resilience. So basically, how the 1930s ended, well, here's another question. that I pose. How does the Great Depression change the role of government in Canada? Well, now, the answer is now, Canadians now expect their government to react when a financial crisis occur by taking actions and interventions as well. So again, social welfare came out of this. Again, if you have any questions at any point throughout this class, simply just let me know live right now or get a hold of me after class either by phone call, email, Facebook. Again, remember, I'm here to help if you are struggling with your assignments, if something doesn't make sense. Again, all this content are in your textbook. But if you're curious, you can always Google or research additional information as well. Moving along to our next theme and our last topic for today, we'll be looking at women once again. We'll be looking at political concerns of women. Prohibition, that was one theme that came out, where prohibition is all about the ban and the sale of alcohol consumption. And also thought about getting the right to vote. Again, women's rights and equality has changed greatly, but as you can see, they'll eventually gain the right to vote. The Temperance movement, who are these guys? So the Temperance movement was basically groups of women that came together. It was a political and social campaign where they came together from all major cities across Canada, where they worked together, used their voices to pressure the government to make changes. They want to change. They want to be seen as equal. They want to be seen as a person that's just like men. They had thoughts, suggestions, and ideas that reflected their point of view in terms of how to improve and change Canadian society. They did not just want to ban the sale of alcohol consumption, but they also want to work on improvement in sectors such as hospitals, school, and even prisons. Again, they were big into saying no to alcohol because they believed that it was the abuse of alcohol that caused unemployment, disease, prostitution, poverty, and immortality in society. So again, they were really against this based on these beliefs, based on these values. But again, who were these women? Well, they're really made up of white Protestant, British origin women. They formed groups such as the Women's Christian Temperance Union. So if you Google search the Women's Christian Temperance Union, you'll see more about what they did and why they felt this way. So these were who they were. Groups of women want to take actions in their own hands to change society that would reflect their point of view. But all this didn't stop there. Obviously, it didn't work. There were underground cells and bootleggers and smugglers in terms of alcohol consumptions. And the government really didn't listen. They simply just ignored all their suggestions and didn't really take them into account or take them seriously. So the only way they thought to change society in their reflective was to gain the right to vote. It was the only way in their point of view. We must gain the right to vote. So what they did was that they held demonstrations, collected names on petitions. They wrote articles, newspaper, letters, magazines. Again, they really voiced their opinion and did whatever they did to get their voice out there to the public. But again, they needed to gain the right to vote so that they can vote in different people, different legislations, and rules and laws that would reflect them. Did they win? Yes, they did. When the vote was won. Well, it didn't just happen overnight. It didn't just happen the next day. Obviously, it took some time, but eventually we recognize women as people, as human beings, and as based on gender equal to men as well. So women won the right to vote differently in terms of different provincial provinces. So depending on where you live, in terms of which province or territory, women won the vote differently. 1916, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. The following year in 1917, it was BC and Ontario. Note here that federally, women can vote federally all in 1917, limitedly, but it was not until 1918 where all women could vote federally. But in terms of provincial voting, it varied in terms of which year. 1918 for Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. PEI not until 1922, and Quebec not until 1940. Okay, so again, note the different years where women won the right to vote provincially compared to federally. So what do you notice? Obviously, they're voting in different years. But not all women can vote, even though they won the right to vote. First Nation women, Aboriginal women, they were denied the right to vote until 1960. Okay, which is pretty much recently, if you think about it. Asian women and even the Asian men, they were disfranchised until the late 1940s. So again, you see that discrimination and unequal balance happening there. Okay, so you know what happened throughout the whole province based on ethnic origin and race, it still played a factor. Just keep that in mind as well. So, class, everyone, that pretty much wraps up today's class in terms of looking at the 1920s, 1930s, Great Depression, and Temperance movement. Again, obviously we didn't go in great details about each one. We just touched the surface of each one. Again, I think a lot of us may have prior knowledge already in terms of what these events transpired. Again, this is PLAR. We're all mature students. We'll all use some prior knowledge in terms of answering these questions so that we can get our credit. But your next assignment, assignment 3, is a big one. It's about 29 marks. And again, I'm looking for the same expectation and same details. Again, if you're still unsure, go back, look at the course syllabus, the course outline, look at the course expectation, look at how we write in full complete sentences with details. Make sure we check for spelling, grammar, punctuation, all those stuff, so that we can improve our literacy skills and writing skills as well. Question number 1. Name 3 items that was invented that people started to use and acquired in the 1920s. Okay, I'm looking for 3 things. Okay, it could be cars, okay, and name me one more. Next questions is, what do you think? Next question asks you, what caused the Great Depression? Okay, so I'm still looking for details about what was the Great Depression. So what was it? How did it started? What were the factors behind it? What were the impact? Okay, I'm looking for what was the Great Depression. So again, provide some background knowledge, some details about the Great Depression. And then this is the best and fun part. It asks, what do you think? Okay. Do you think another Great Depression could happen today? Why? Or why not? So again, you can't just say yes, Jonathan, I think another Great Depression could happen. Or you can say no, I don't think another Great Depression could happen. But tell me why. Okay? Obviously, you answer the first part, but tell me why. Okay? I need reasons. I need evidence to support your answer. Okay? Because why? Okay, why do you feel this way? Don't say I don't know. Okay, but why do you feel this way? What makes you think this way? Okay? Give me an example that you see in your community. Give me an example that you see online. But based on your knowledge and understanding of the Great Depression, where it left million people jobless and homeless and bankrupt, can this factor of where the stock market can crash again, can that happen again? Yes or no? Why? And tell me why. Okay? You cannot find this answer in your textbook. It's all about your thinking skills. Okay? Think outside the box. Why do you feel this way? Does it make sense? Is what I'm looking for. So sure, you get some marks for telling me what the Great Depression was. You might get another mark for saying yes or no. But the main part I'm looking here is why do you feel this way? Okay? So again, reason to support. Next question talks about describe the challenges that farmers had to overcome in the Great Depression. So again, obviously it impacted all Canadians, but it mainly hit the farmers the hardest. But why? What happened? Give me some examples. Okay, what happened? Okay, what was a drought? Okay, tell me what a drought was. Tell me what the grasshopper plague was. Okay. Grasshoppers. Not a P in there. Okay, so again, give me some examples. But again, I'm giving you hints. I'm giving you ideas and details. But again, your job here now is to put it into details and put it into full complete sentences. Again, history, again, it's not always necessary about articulating the correct answer, but it's how we articulate our thinking. Okay? Sure, like I said, the correct answer is always correct, but I want to see your thinking. Make that connection. Give us some examples. Next, you'll see a little chart that looks something like this, where it's broken up into the 1900s, and it has expectation based on different roles and different gender. You can find this all on page number 8. It talks about education, unemployment, or employment, and family roles. So, your job here, feel free to use jot notes, is to break down gender and their roles. So, can women go to school? What kind of education can women have compared to men? Can men go to school, university or college? Jobs, employment. What kind of jobs do women do? You can talk about servants, cooking, cleaning, maiden, taking care of the family. And what kind of jobs did men do? And family roles. How did women support the family? And how did men support the family? Okay. List some ideas, list some points. You'll see this all on page number 8 in your textbook as well. But again, you're comparing gender roles in terms of their expectation in these fields. Question 5 talks about the temperance movement. Who were they? Why were they formed? What did they focus on besides prohibition? Question number 6. Why did women feel it was important to get the right to vote? For this one, I'm looking for what did the government do? Hint, hint, why did the government ignore all their suggestions? And it should be 2 more questions. Question 7, where it says, describe how women won the right to vote provincially compared to acquiring the right to vote federally. And the last question, question number 8, is a big one, where it talks about women's rights today. You're comparing women's rights today compared to back then, looking at education, employment, and family role. Okay, you're comparing to what women were like in the 1900s to what women are like today. So again, feel free to think outside the box. Feel free to give examples from your community and what you see to help support your answer. So that's right there is lesson number 1. We'll start lesson number 2 next week on Tuesdays. We're back live once again in class at 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m. Central Time, local time here in Sioux Lookout here at Wassa. Again, Monday is Family Day long weekend, which means that we're closed. Our Wassa office in Sioux Lookout will be closed. So again, it won't affect our class because we're only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But again, just a general announcement that Monday will be closed and no classes are happening on Monday. Any questions, class or students? Again, fantastic job. Everyone's doing great. They shouldn't have any problems. If you do have questions, again, give me a phone call. Give me an email, Facebook me, I'll get back to you. We'll figure out what the situation is. I'll help you if you're stuck on an assignment. But please continue to work on your assignments. Get them to me. I'll mark it. I'll give you feedback. There shouldn't be any problems. Everything's pretty straightforward. So I think I'll stop it for today. Next week on Tuesday, we'll start lesson number 2, where we'll look at Canada's involvement, Canada's contribution during World War II. So again, if you want to learn more about that, please join me live on Tuesday. I'll say hi to you, I'll help you out with your questions, and hopefully we'll learn all that together. But on that, have yourself a great evening, have yourself a great night. I'll see everyone back here next week on Tuesday. Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.